Welcome to Toei Hill Studio. My name is Kendall Kessler. Please like and subscribe, and please check out my intro video. In 2 minutes, you can find out all about me, where I've been, where I'm going, what my goals are. I put up painting demos and studio tours. Last time I did a what I call center of my mind, what most people call abstract, music without words, whatever you want to call it, painting that I think turned out really well, and I can't explain why. It has to do with colors I like, how they work together, the textures. That art is a language all its own, but I think it turned out real well. And this is the kind of painting that, you either like it or you don't like it because of the way it looks, not because of what it looks like. So there's all kinds of different approaches to art, and there's just, I think, always something for everyone. This time I've decided to do another of my Kendall letters. I decided a while back to do some very creative typography, something anyone can do, and I would really encourage people to do that, where you take a letter and just turn it into something. Turn it into a work of art that is unique to you, that is just an expressive letter. And this time I decided to do a Z. My two favorite are the one I did of an A and a W. If you ever check them out, I'll have the link there at the top of the description of where to see more. But don't have any really preconceived ideas this time what to do. The only thing I want to do is like the A and the W. I want it to get real complicated. I want to really get a lot going, which is hard to do in about 15 minutes, so I may have to work afterwards. But these always just take me in different directions, and I just go with it and see what I get done in 15 minutes, because I don't like these to be real long. So I'm just going to have the paint fairly thick, let it run some, but also let it sit so I can really get a lot going on. And I want to not think about it so much, just paint. Just explore, which is what I love to do on these YouTube ones. I'm on the second stage of a wildflower painting in oils. Most of my paintings are oils. And take a long time going from thin to thick layers. These are real fast expressions. And I like both. I like to paint in many different directions. I always have. I've always just thought it's fascinating to use different approaches. But my main work would be classified, if you're gonna get into that stuff, would be classified as a type of impressionism with expressionistic components. But I like to do other things too. And I really like to just let paint express itself. That doesn't make any sense. If you painted, you'd understand. Anyway, I know I did one of these before. I don't know how long it's been. And I talked about how fascinating letters are to me and people's handwriting. So if you've heard this, sorry, but I'm going to go over it again. A lot of people don't think that they're an artist. A lot of people don't think that in any way they're an artist. Well, yeah, there's one way everybody's an artist, and that's your handwriting. You put yourself into the way you handle those lines. You put your thoughts, your feelings, who you are into that, and that's what an artist is. It's not just a matter of drawing, that's very important, but there's so much more to art than that. It is communication, and that's what you do when you write. I hope they don't stop having cursive in schools, because that's, as I said, it's the one way everyone is an artist. And the science of this, I'm sure you've probably heard of it, graphology. And there are a lot of great books that if you really want to look this up, you'll find some very interesting things. And in these books, there's usually a lot of famous people and what their signature says about them. And I'm not going to go into any of these because it might get into some politics, and I stay out of that. But there are some really interesting ones in these books, and I've always been fascinated by this. When I was a kid, I'd look at different people's handwriting, especially adults. I think, why? Why is that person's handwriting so different from that person's? My mother's handwriting was tiny, little tiny letters, except for the caps. The caps were big, but the rest of it was very, very small. My father's big, jagged edges, hardly any curves, just great, big, jagged peaks. And that just fascinated me. And then my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, hers was like something that she came up with as a design. I've never seen anything like it. Just fascinating, beautiful, like her own type of calligraphy. It was amazing. To me. You know, a lot of people say, oh, that's a person's handwriting, so what? Well, as a very visually oriented person, it just always fascinated me. And when I found a book on graphology, I thought, oh, that is really cool. That people can actually find out what you're like by the way you're handling a line, by the way you're putting those lines down. Well, so far I'm not real crazy about this, but as I say, so often say, when you've got white, which is all colors together, it overcomes things. So right now I'm not real happy with this because of the white. I'm going to have to get rid of that so I can really see these color relationships, because it's just not doing much for me so far. But you can always go back into it. It's a wonderful thing about art. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't realize that paintings are almost always done in layers. I remember doing a commission for a really great lady that bought a bunch of my paintings and had me do a commission. I remember her coming over because she wanted to see how it was coming, and I'd had the whole first layer done. It's the first thin layer, and she was not completely happy. There was things she wanted to change, and she just couldn't believe that I could easily, completely change the painting. And if she had liked the way it was, I would have just built it up that way with the rest of the layers. But if she didn't, I could go in a different direction. And she just could not. I could tell by the look on her face. And what do you mean you could change it? It's covered. But they're almost always done in layers. Not always, but almost always done going thin to thick. I'm kind of thick on this one. Usually I start a lot thinner. You can see the painting is not that bleeding technique that I use a lot. But I'm going back into a lot of these areas because I'm not real crazy about them. I think they need some modification. It's starting to look better to me. The red and the green was too separate for me. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, makes sense to me. And they needed to work together a little better. So that's why I'm going back into those areas before I do the back. And it's only 7 minutes. So I should easily get this done. As I said, this is something anyone can do. You know, take a big letter and just play with it. And it really can be a really great experience. Been such a day. I'm doing this at night. I don't usually do them at night, but God, I've been so tired today. Sundays are always kind of busy. I play the piano at church, and even though I've been doing it for 5 years, I still gets me all uptight and nervous. It always comes out fine, but still, performing is really not easy. I'm amazed at these people that get in front of huge crowds and play an instrument or sing. God, how do they do it? I'm in front of a few people at church and flipping out, getting kind of a little sick to my stomach. And the church service was really long. The pastor was trying to do something different, to have like a study. Instead of a sermon, we're going through a book and talking about it, just really discussing. And that can go on for a long time. So instead of our usual hour, it was an hour and a half. And I was really tired afterwards. And I did the refreshments and all too, and I'm pooped. And I did a lot of stuff today on the computer. I'm just very, very busy person, always working. Okay, it looks a little better to me now. Now they're not so separate. I feel like there's getting some nuances, so it's not such colors just really sticking out by themselves, which I hardly ever like. I like them to really different warm and cool colors just kind of going together. Okay, now I gotta do something in the background. I might get a bigger brush so I can move this along. Always go back into it. And I don't know what colors. I've got kind of a red, green, bluish thing here. Not sure what I want to do. I may have to get a smaller brush and redefine the zebra. Good grief, I am really tired. The Z before I finish, because I might just kind of let this go together. But I'm going to use a little more water this time, let it move around, because I want to go a little faster now. So let it maybe bleed, or wet, whatever you want to call it, in the watercolor. This is acrylic, but it can be used as a watercolor. And I'm really not using it as a watercolor, except for this kind of as a watercolor technique I'm doing right now. Yeah, that's making it look a whole lot better to me. Gotta get rid of that white. I know that a lot of people are wondering what I'm talking about. Yeah, if you paint it a lot, you'd understand. It really can overpower your colors because it's all colors together. Getting towards a very, very high degree of reflection off of all colors together. black is a very low reflection of all colors together. I don't think we ever really have complete black. But anyway, I used to go over this a lot when I taught at Radford University, and it was one of the more interesting things I think people really got into was color theory. And it changes all the time, but it really is very fascinating if you look it up. Oh, this could be a whole lot better. Yeah, I like this much better now. Yeah, I didn't want it to be plain. The last one I did was a P, and it's okay, but it's just like kind of plain, and I didn't want this one to be plain. I wanted this one, well, maybe a better word would be not so complicated. I wanted this one to be complicated. I wanted to have a lot going on. And that P I recently did was, it was stylized, but it was kind of real definite, and I didn't let a whole lot happen. And it's very decorative, but just not super complicated. And I always, in all my work, like to get into lots of brushwork, lots of color. I'm sure there's people watching this that are saying, yeah, I think I've heard that ad nauseum. Well, always get new people too. All right. Yeah, I like this a lot better. Now some things are happening that I wasn't planning on at the beginning and making it look a lot more interesting to me. And getting rid of that white. I think I'll get some yellow up here. I got so much paint on my palette. I tend to do that, and then I end up putting it back in, which is really cool. With acrylics, you can do that. If you've got jars and stuff, you can put the paint back in. It's real messy. I just use my fingers. But you can put it back in so you don't waste it. Now, the tubes, of course, no. Can't really get them back in. And you can't do that with oil paint. And but the nice thing about oil paint is it doesn't dry so fast. So I have a palette that has a top on it. I don't know how much it helps, but I know it helps some to keep that paint that I put out from drying out. I wanted to have more complexity in the color in the background. I'm kind of getting awful green here. Let me see, get some more blue, and then I think I'm going to go ahead and quit. It's getting towards the end. I know the way I'm doing this, it probably looks, really easy and it's nothing, but it's not. It's very hard to do this, especially talking at the same time. And to get it done, get something that I think is good enough to put in my portfolio, it's really quite hard. And as I said, lots of times I go back into them afterwards a little bit because that's just not acceptable. But I like this. I think this is going to be one of the ones where I just kind of touch it up a little bit. There are certain areas where I think I went back into a little too much, and I'd like to bring out the reds a little more, and probably the blues a little more too. And just probably mess with a really small brush, just add a little bit more and redefine this. I've noticed that when I have one object, it's usually really good to really get a really strong, definite outline, contrasting with the lighted background. So thank you so much for watching. The link to the final painting will be at the top of the description. The link to my Wix website, please check that out. I'm putting up a blog every day. The link to my, did I say Etsy? I don't know, I'm so tired. Etsy shop. Other places that have my artwork.